Okay, Beseda. So we're up to Siman Nun Gimel Halacha Yud Aleph. Very interesting halachas. These are rules for Chazanim. The Chazan who goes on a bit too long, these sort of halachas. So it says the Mechaba in Yud Aleph. Shliach tzibur shema'arich betfilasei. A shliach tzibur, a Chazan, who goes on too long in his tefillah, kadei sheyishmu koilei orev, so that people can hear that he's got a very nice voice. Now, is that a problem? If he's doing it l'shem shamayim, that he's happy, that he's giving praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'ne'ima, with a pleasantness, then tovel bracha, then beautiful. So long as he's davening with a certain ema and yira and a trepidation. But if he's doing it so that he can make his voice heard, and he's happy in his voice, he's just sort of showing off that he's got such a beautiful voice, so that's maguna. So it all depends on what the person's kavanah is. But even if you're doing it l'shem shamayim, kol shemarich b'tfilosa lo tov, anyone who goes on too long as a bal tefillah, it's not good. Because it's tzircha de tzibura, have rachmanas. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot Lamadan. Shliach tzibur, mi sheyesh le kol noim. Anyone who's got a very pleasant voice, you should sing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you should use it l'shem shamayim. For im rokak, if a person has got saliva and spit in his mouth, yikaneach piv v'achach yispalel. He should clean out his mouth and then daven. Not to daven when his mouth is full of spit and saliva. Maguna. So a person, if a person sort of shows off about his pleasant voice, then that's called maguna, says the Shulchan Orach. Isa b'sefer Chasidim. B'shas Shimon Gamliel Yotzel Adin, an unbelievable Sefer Chasidim. Look at this. At the time when Shimon Gamliel was going out to be executed, Yotzel Adin lehoreg. Omer Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol. He said to Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, Ochi, b'pnei mani yotzel lehoreg. What did I do to deserve this? Maybe you gave a shir, you darshan barabim, v'somach libcha, and you rejoiced in your heart, v'neh nisa midivrei Torah, and you got hana from divrei Torah. Amalei achi nichamtoni, you've comforted me. So a person who's acting as a shliach tzibur, whether he's darshaning in the rabbim or he's acting as a bal tefillah, whatever it may be, he's got to do it l'shem shamayim and not to rejoice and to show off and take pride in his own voice or whatever it may be. Hatzibur. Listen to this. Also, you can't go on too long against the wishes of the kahal. Even on Shabbos and Yontiv, where people aren't rushing off to work. And even if you're doing it with the permission of the tzibur, don't go on too long. Because on Yontiv, there's Chatzi Lachem and Chatzi Lashem. This is not neither. A shliach tzibur whose voice has broken and he's not what he used to be. If the voice is quite broken and it's not as good as it used to be, then he shouldn't be davening for the omid. If you've got two chazanim who are equal, then Kohen Kaitim the Levi. If one of them is a Kohen, he comes before the Levi. Levi the Yisrael, the Levi becomes before the Yisrael. The Talmid Chacham Kaitim La'amar, it's Afilu Kohen v'Kol Sheken Levi. And the Talmid Chacham gets top priority. Take a look at footnote 44, very interesting. Regarding Chazanim who go on a bit too long, a Chazan who sings too long. Another criticism of Chazanim, that sometimes they distort the words. They one letter is disjointed or one word is disjointed, and therefore they've got to sing according to the meaning of the words. And there's other kilkulim, other things that can come out from their singing, that at the end of a bracha, when they're sort of being marich at the very end of the bracha, sometimes the tzibur will say Amen before he's actually got to the end of the bracha, because the Chazan is sort of being ma'arich, is prolonging the last words. and therefore that messes up the amen at the end of the bracha. So he's got to be very careful about that. And also, interestingly, in a silent Shemona Esrei, when the Baal Tefillah is davening mincha or shachris, whatever it may be, and in his own silent Shemona Esrei, he shouldn't go on too long. Kosav v'shal shuvas hari migash. Don't daven too long that the tzibur are going to be waiting for you to finish. Very, very interesting. It's interesting with Rabbi Roberts, Zechrin Orach, whenever he used to daven, for his own Shemona Esrei, it was normal pace, and the Baal Tefillah, the Chazan would then. But whenever he davened mincha, always in Hagas. He didn't daven the Adas, so always at 1:45 mincha Gedolah in Hagas, and he would almost always finish after Chazor Shatz finished. So there, no one's waiting for him. He would daven then, and they knew they not to wait for him. But in his own shul, the Rav of the shul, he would be much quicker. Okay, Yud Beis. Ein memanin misha kori la'alfin einin or la'einin alfin. Don't appoint a chazan who confuses alefs and einin and einins and alefs. Now this nowadays is not so prevalent, but if you go to a good Sephardi shul where the ayin is an ayin, it's a gutter, it comes from the throat, so then it's different from an alef. And therefore, you shouldn't appoint someone who confuses the two. Says Mishnah Berurah Alfin Ayin Pirush Havaras Ayin, the pronunciation of the Ayin, who b'chayzek v'amuka yosim havaras Aleph is much more guttural. It comes from the throat. V'uadin l'misha koreh chesin heinin, someone who mixes up cheses and a hey, he can't pronounce a ches. My daughter's a speech therapist, and she tells me that unless you learn how to do a ches from a very early age, you can't do it. Yeah, we're thinking in school of appointing mechaneches. So the non-Jewish staff are pulling their hair out. Mechaneches. It's not an easy word to say if you are not accustomed to say the letter ches. Shekar shiboiles siboiles, or those people who call shiboiles siboiles, they can't say shin. Right, like we have the story in Nach. But if the whole town speak like that, so you have the whole of Shevet Binyamin, I think it was, then that's allowed. Someone who can't articulate the letters properly, he's got a stutter, or something like that. He should not done for the Omid. And it's difficult from the Yerushalmi Perek. I think that means if his tongue is in a certain way, he's matter it, even though it's because the actual pronunciation of the words is not so different. Okay, so whatever that discussion is all about. Lamed ches or la'ainin alfin, they mispronounce ayins and alefs. But if there's nobody else, even if a person can't say a ches or he confuses cheses and hays, then if there's no one else, he can do it. The Pnei Moshe says no. He says, even if there's no one else who can daven for the Omid, other than this person who confuses cheses and hays, you shouldn't let him daven for the Omid. Unless he can, with a lot of effort, he can do it. But even the first opinion which allowed it, that's not as a regular permanent Baal Tefillah. That's only as a one-off, as a short-time thing. Because maybe tomorrow somebody else can do it better. Okay, Yud Gimel. So what is that? It says the Mechaber Pecheach, for whom his clothes are torn, or Zeros of Megulim, or his arms are bare. Lo yerid lifnei teva. He shouldn't go down and daven for the Omid. Says the Mishnah Berurah. V'gam kseifov, also his shoulders are exposed. Lifnei teva lehaus shliach tzibur lispalo. You shouldn't allow him to go down to be the shliach tzibur, to be the chazan. Avol peireis hu ad shema levad v'gam in the kerbater shekanayu. The whole thing is a ganai. He's allowed to do the shema and the brachas of shema, but he can't lein and he can't daven for the Omid. The chazor sashatz and the main body of being a chazan. Yud Daled. Summa. What about a blind person? So says the Mechaber, Summa Yored Lifnei Ateva, a blind person can go down and daven for the Omid, or Bavachali Kribateira, so long as he doesn't lean. Mishum Dvarim Shebichsav Yatra Shaila Amr Baal Peh, because Dvarim Shebichsav, written Torah, you can't say it Baal Peh. That's one has to tell the mitzvah boys that sometimes they're so familiar with the laning, you got to warn them that they can't sort of look up and look around and start carrying on the laning. They've got to read it from the Sefer Torah for that same reason. It says the Mishnah Berurah Yudalet Mem Aleph Amin Summa Afilu B'Shtei Einov, even if he is blind in both eyes, he's allowed to daven for the Amud. V'chayev b'chol ha-mitzvahs min ha-Torah. Summa is chayev in all mitzvahs min ha-Torah. D'kamlan Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan Rabbi Yehuda. We passing like the Rabbanan that he is a summa is chayev in mitzvahs. Uv'tshuvas chavas yoy siman kuf ayin vov he'eleh she'af al-pikein lo yispal summa b'yom neroim. But it's nevertheless a summa, blind person, should not daven on the Yom Neroim. Afilu be'echol meinov, even if he is only blind in one eye. If there is someone else who is more appropriate, ayin sham tama, and take a look at the reason, and he brings in the notes there, it's al pi hasoid, it's Kabbalistic reasons that a blind person, even in one eye, should not daven for the Amud on Yom Neroim, but the rest of the year it's okay, even if it's blind in two eyes. Venerally, the af the divrei hachavas yah hainu rak shel nos lechatchila. That's not to appoint him lechatchila. Avlo lesalkum shliach tzibur nasis summa, but not to remove him if he became blind and he was the official chazan on the Yom Neroim. Shliach tzibur sheish lo kavedus oznaim, he's hard of hearing. She'ena shemer klal, that he's deaf, nebuch, and he can't hear. Masik b'chidusha b'kiva ega the lo yesh shliach tzibur. The b'kiva ega concludes that a deaf person should not be a chazan. The af the im lo hishmir la'ozn yotza, even if that we hold that if you don't say something and you can't hear it with your own ears, yotza, since lechatchila you should be able to hear what you say. Therefore, then lechatchila he's not being able to be motzi others. Shelo yikra ayin lekaman siman kuflam tesif given bahago tesvov mi she'ena shliach tzibur kavua. Sorry, have I done the right one? Sorry, tesvov shliach tzibur kavua. Now, very interesting halachas. Shliach tzibur kavua, he can just go down to the Amud without being asked. They don't have to wait to be asked, says the Mishnah Berurah, because he's already appointed that, so there's no problem. Let me just do the next one because it's related very quickly. Tezayin, misha ena shliach tzibur. But if it's not a shliach tzibur kavua, then sorich lesoriv ma'at. When you get asked to daven, you should resist initially. Kodim she'ered ifnei teva, v'lo yosem midai, but not overly. Don't make the gabba's life so impossible. Elapam rishonim esoriv. The first time you resist, or cheshem lepam sheni, then he asks you nachmal, please daven for the Amud. Meichin atzma k'moshe roitz l'amid. You sort of start moving and shifting a little bit to head towards the Amud. Or pam shlishis yamid, and then just third time, just get up and go. V'im ha'im lo she'ered hu adam godliv. But the person's asking you, if the dayan comes over to you and says, please daven for the Amud, eina mesarev klal, because mesarev in the cotton, ve'ein mesarev in the godl. Says the Mishnah Berurah, lesarev shliach tzibur shelo rotz liyos od shliach tzibur v'kiblu achav b'mkoma ein sorech rishus. If a shliach tzibur wants to he wants to step down, and then someone's coming to replace you, then he doesn't need rishus. Just go. But you got to get rishus from the second guy. You don't refuse a great person if he asks you to daven. But if it's a question of gasas and shora, then even if it's an adam gadol, you can resist. Just one final point, very interesting. That only applies in footnote 53. If someone asks you to be it's bal tefillah for pesukah de zimra only, oile slichas. You should not resist. So only if it's a big tefillah where you've got chazor hashatz, that you can resist. But pesukah de zimra, do not resist and do not make the gabba's life so difficult.